Hi, I'm Greg Tom, and welcome to the Community Advocate Podcast. Today, we're catching up with CEO of the Alannah and Madeline Foundation, Sarah Davies, to talk about a very important issue, digital rights and online safety for children. Welcome, Sarah.
Thanks for having me, Greg. It's great to be here.
No, it's always a pleasure to have a chat. I know you're a very active and passionate advocate in this space, and there's been a lot happening of late. Why is online safety for children an issue, and where are we right now? I know that's a bit of an open question because, like I said, there is a lot going on and you've been heavily involved in a lot of it. But yeah, I'll leave it to you to kick it off and give us a bit of a stock take.
Well, why don't I start with one of those beautiful cliches and say it's been a journey?
Go ahead.
Yeah. So look, the Alannah and Madeline Foundation are one of our core programs. One of our core objectives is to empower children and young people to be positive digital citizens. So in a programmatic sense, for about 15 years now, we have been supporting schools and teachers and parents with resources and learning activities and tips and tricks and help them keep their children safe and strong online so that they keep themselves safe and other people safe and that they can maximise, the opportunities that tech and digital offers them. So we run a program across all the schools in Australia, a set of free resources from prep through to about grade 10 of curriculum-aligned media and digital literacy resources that teachers can use. So that's kind of our core business. But through working kind of every day directly with children and teachers and families, we've come to understand much more about the nature of the harms and risks that children and young people face online. And of course, the more you understand them, you then start to see patterns and shapes and intent and design features that you just think, well, this is great. We can help children develop all the digital and media literacy skills they like. But actually, if what's driving the underlying deliberate design is stacked against them, they're always going to be limited in their effectiveness. So I will be really honest, we've gone a bit down some quite dark tunnels in this, in trying to kind of work back from, well, okay, what are the harms and risks? What's driving them? What's feeding them, and then what actually is enabling them. And that's really led us into the policy and advocacy space, because unless we have really good, strong enforced regulation in Australia that stops the deliberate and intentional design of tech that is hurting our children, we're never really going to address the issue.
Well, and thanks for explaining the context. I know you do regularly try and call this out. So that leads us to the recently legislated reforms in the Privacy Act as one element of this. Is that a good thing? I mean, it's never that.
We are
yeah.
very, very excited about the potential of a really good online children's privacy code for Australia. So at the end of last year, a bucket of legislation went through government, within which was this holding place and a commitment to have an online children's privacy code. And the Office of the Australian Information Commissioner, Carly Kind, has been given sort of 2 years and some money to actually develop that code. We think that is the single biggest opportunity right now to rewrite the rules of the game for all digital tech products that are likely to be used by children in Australia. And that if you don't meet the rules of the game, you can't play, you can't offer services in Australia that actually protect children's privacy and safety at the very core. So very excited about that possibility. We've got a lot of work to do this year in supporting the Information Commissioner and in really ensuring that that code is as broad as possible across all tech, so not just social media, education technology, health technology, ad tech, games, wearables, the whole lot, and that it prevents the commercial exploitation of children's data, because that is what sits in the beast of the belly, if you like, that is actually driving that kind of chain through to the harms that we see in our children and young people every day.
So that, as you said, that looks like it is going to be a happening thing. It's just really
Yes.
what like that code, which is a great, and that's
Absolutely.
taken a long time to get to that point that we've got.
It has. It has. And so whilst the door of opportunity is open, it's not without risks. We are aware that, so we're not the first to do this. The UK's got one, Europe's got one, but we know how particularly big tech has responded, and the pressure to keep the scope of that code tiny, narrow, and shallow is really significant. And what we need to do is put pressure on and really try and encourage the code to be broad and deep around its definition of digital and tech.
In terms of the government's social media push, like limiting the age, getting all the detail of that. Where do you stand on that? I know we've spoken before. There are some aspects you agree in principle, but in the detail, it's quite. I mean, I know there are some views that, well, at least they're putting this out there, and now let's talk about the detail. But that's a vital first step to put forward some sort of regime. Do you guys feel that way?
So look, we've tried to. I think about this like an iceberg, Greg. Right. So if you've got the waterline, on top of the waterline are all the visible, tangible results of children's experience online, good, bad, and ugly. Right. So. And that's what's driving our community concern, because we can see mental and physical health decline, online bullying, scams, doxing, trolling, fake content, sextortion, et cetera, et cetera. And so what we're responding to as a community is we're responding to those visible, tangible impacts and behaviours. So I can absolutely understand the community saying we need to keep them away from this. And that's what we've done with the social media, raising the age of access to social media. We're saying we're going to put another fence at the top of the cliff, and you can't go past that fence unless you're over 16. So I get all of that. And there are good things about that. And one of the best things about that is it's actually engaging people's brains, and they're starting to say, I need to understand this a bit better and talk about it. But actually, unless we go below the waterline and understand what's causing those impacts, we're never going to be able to actually change anything. All we're going to do is we're going to have a series of fences. We're not changing the nature of this. And so sort of I think about it in kind of 4 layers. The top layer is the visible stuff that we're all reacting to, and that's the age ban on social media. The next layer that sits just below the waterline is a categorization of the harms and the risks that children and young people face online. So harmful content, harmful contacts, so people with nefarious intent, harmful conduct and behaviour, compulsion, nudging, scrolling, and contract, the kind of lifelong contract, cradle to grave kind of money stuff. So if you think about the risks in those sorts of 5 clusters, you then ask the obvious question, well, what's the next layer down? What's the engine that's driving those risks? Like, how are they built? How are they designed? And those risks are designed with algorithms, recommender systems, predictive analytics, individual profiling. So knowing who we are, where we live, what we like, what we're scared of, who we're upset with, how we're feeling at any particular time. So, demographic profiling, psychographic profiling, biometric profiling, even now neurological profiling. So that's the kind of engine. And then you say, well, what's the fuel that's pumping this engine? And the fuel is data. It's us. So big tech monetizes us. We're their profits. It's our data. And so all that data collection and leakage is fed into those engines, which drive those risks, which deliver those behaviors. So if we don't dive down to the bottom, the murky bottom of that iceberg, and say, you cannot sell, exchange, lend children's data, personal data, who they are, where they live, where they go to school, how they're feeling, who their friends are, you cannot share it with anybody for commercial purposes. You start to actually chop off the fuel that then drives the behavior that we're seeing. And whilst we're all focused on the top of the iceberg, that's fine, but we've actually got to take all of our intelligence and our attention down to the bottom and change this deliberate design and stop the exploitation of children through their data.
Do you think that's being done behind the scenes? Like, you articulated these concerns with the government's regime. Like, I know they put it out there and they've effectively said, yes, we have to explore this stuff, but is that hard work is being done?
Yeah, so look, there are, a few years, as I say, we came across this through our work directly with children and young people, and maybe 4 or 5 years ago, maybe there were half a dozen organisations thinking about this. Now, certainly there are more, and in our sector, we work really closely with, Reset and UNICEF and Digital Rights Watch and, the consumer protection people, like all of that. There's a growing awareness. So absolutely, our experience has been that there is significant bipartisan support to protecting children online and understanding that you've actually got to go to the belly of the beast and deal with these design issues, without doubt. However, the pressure from tech, their lobbying power, their money power, their access power to continually try and contract scope of all of this is really insidious. It really is. And they like us focusing on the top of the iceberg because it's our fault, right? So if our children have a tough time online, well, we're bad parents or we're bad teachers. Or if, they're using tech in a classroom that's leaked their data to people who've been able to buy it and profile, well, bad teachers. That's bullshit. We absolutely have to deal with this in a regulatory way as well as all the other ways. So yes, I think there is understanding. Yes, I think there's bipartisan support, but are we there yet? No. We've got a lot of work to do. And we're not asking for anything that other jurisdictions haven't done. They have an online children's privacy code in the UK. Europe, we've seen, has got probably some of the best regulation around this. And we see how much that's at the moment, particularly US-based big tech is trying to undermine it. So, we need to be bold, we need to be brave, we need to stay strong and intelligent and deal with the design and the source issues.
On that front, even just today, and you might have read too, I was reading there's concern with the Trump administration, and obviously, there's a whole lot of stuff going on over there that there may be pushback these sorts of things, anything that gets in the way of US tech companies and digital. Obviously, our government hasn't said they're being intimidated by that, but there's concerns that, well, how does this fit into a whole lot? Are you worried about that could be a spanner in the works as to how fast we could get some of this stuff done or whether it gets watered down?
Am I worried? Absolutely, because, with the Online Children's Privacy Code, as I said, it needs to cover all digital and tech products that are likely to be used by children, not just social media, games, shopping apps, health, like everything. And certainly there is a push to kind of keep the scope of it really skinny and shallow. We've got to resist that. But that's really hard when you're up against very wealthy, well-armed, well-networked access to power industries, right? And we've seen that in other major global industries that try and protect their economic interests. So, I think one of the things we also have to do is work with tech to help try and design a different type of business model for them, because we want tech, right? The opportunities are extraordinary. Children and young people very often love their digital experience. It adds so much in terms of access and equity and education and social engagement and entertainment and learning. And if we can, this might be a bit naive, but if we can work with tech to help break the nexus, so data is dollars, right? If we can actually think about, well, what's the business model and the value proposition where other things are dollars? Like maybe we have to start paying for stuff we want to use. We're paying for it, and we're paying for it, some people in the worst possible way, but we have to change that relationship. So I think everyone has a responsibility here. Everyone has the power, I think, if we try and do that together.
Yes. Because one of the challenges seems to be, and not just in this space, but it's become so volatile with personalities. Like, obviously, Elon Musk and Donald Trump
Yeah.
themselves, but reference that because they're American companies largely. A lot of the
Yes.
and the tech players that you're talking, and there's that.
Yes.
Obviously the Biden administration was much more on board with having sensible conversations about this sort of stuff, and it was probably hard enough with the tech bros, but now it's just this added chaos. Like you just got to keep pushing through, but actually negotiating through just gives it an extra.
It's hard. Yeah.
It makes it extra difficult. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's really interesting, Greg. So, been down some dark tunnels with this. One of the things, though, that I have really enjoyed is I've tried to talk to as many Australian kind of tech companies as possible, particularly in the education technology space, right? Because that's a really fabulous market. We've got really clever people developing and providing fabulous kind of digital learning resources into our schools across the country. And I have yet to meet any tech founder that has said, "Oh, I'm going to wake up now and design something that exploits children." Right? What's happened is that the engine design has kind of grown and grown and grown, and this is where we are, and we have to go back and re-engineer the design. But I don't think it was with that intent. And certainly the Australian EdTech entrepreneurs and founders that I've spoken to are passionate about children's privacy and safety. And when they engage with the bigger global platforms and systems like, Google Classroom sign-on, that's where data leakage happens. So I think if we can build an allyship of Australian businesses around this, maybe it'll make us a bit stronger and braver to hold the line on some of this stuff.
What's the single big? And you might say, I know we talked at length about the children's code, but if you could get one thing done as fast as possible, what would it be? I mean, you're talking about data and what, but is there one quick win that we could have that you can think of, or is it?
I think if we prohibit and ban the sale, exchange, lending, whatever verb you want to use, of children's data, and not allow predictive analytics and algorithms to be designed for children under 18, that will cut a lot of this off. We then need teethy regulation to enforce it, right?
Yeah.
If we do that, if we stop the use of data to drive those engines and say, and look, Ireland are looking at this, France is looking at this, we are so not Robinson Crusoe, right? What if we said no predictive analytics or algorithms for commercial purposes for children in Australia? No collection, sale, exchange, lending, pooling of children's data for commercial reasons. Then you can't, if you can't buy it and you can't profile and you can't push harmful content and conduct at children, you're not going to get a lot of those really awful outcomes. And at the same time, we've got to keep up the investment in building media and digital literacy across the board. Children, young people, old people, parents, everybody. The more we understand, the more we understand what's happening and what we're doing and what we're trading, the more savvy we will be, and therefore the more agency we'll have in our choices about keeping us and our children safe. So I think we need the both.
In your mind, we are getting there. Not everything's always as fast as you would like, but you would say that progress is being made towards
Absolutely.
Australia.
Absolutely. Yeah, we have a fantastic e-safety commission in Australia, an e-safety commissioner. I am so fangirling over our e-safety commissioner and our information commissioner, who's been charged with developing this online children's privacy code. The time is now. That window is open. We design that well, with proper enforcement and good definitions and solid legal legislative structure, then we've made a massive step forward.
No worries. Is there anything else you'd like? That was a pretty comprehensive. I know it's a huge topic, and it is close to your heart, and should be close to a lot of people's hearts. Is there anything you'd like to add, or you think we'll just keep pushing and hope for we get the right result?
So look, from our perspective, that kind of general sort of small p policy and small a advocacy work is really important, because we've come out of understanding experience and it's led us there. What I think I would say to kind of general community, parents, carers, families, is be really curious about this. Don't be passive consumers yourself of tech. every time we engage with it, try and think about, okay, what information am I giving them that they can now monetize? How, like, you know, is this for good? Is this not? Like, be curious and really engage with your children around understanding their experiences. So the more we're aware and the more we understand, the more agency we're going to have about the choices that we make.
No worries. That's fantastic. Thank you for, again, taking the
Pleasure.
time to go through a lot. Like you say, the more conversations we can have about this, the more advocacy better, because it's very, very important. Thanks for those great insights again on what's a very important topic and vital to get right. Join us next time on the Community Advocate podcast. Keep up the good work. Sarah Davies.
Thank you very much, Greg. Appreciate the opportunity.